Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Air with Brian Gregory. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. This is not exactly one of my favorite days in the NFL. In fact, there's always 2 days that I dread every year. It's that final Monday or Tuesday, right after the preseason gets done, where teams decide on cuts, on roster cuts, and they come up with a 53-man roster. And then there's today, Black Monday. I don't like either of those 2 days at all because it signifies that people are losing their livelihoods and a dream that they have been pursuing in the moment has been deferred. And I hate that because these coaches, they work their entire lives for these positions. And when you're granted it, it's such a high and it's such a remarkable opportunity. And then when it comes to an end, you never like to see it happen for anybody. And so, to all the guys that have gotten fired today, I pray for them. I pray for their families that they'll be able to find something again and work themselves back into that head coaching position. I'm sure a lot of them will be eligible for a coordinator role afterwards or respond on somebody's staff, but still, nonetheless, that's nothing that you want to face as a man, as a family. So just wanted to establish that before I got into the show today. We've had 4 head coaches fired in the last 24 hours, and we've had 6 fired total this year. Of course, Brian Daboll got fired by the New York Giants several months ago, and Brian Callahan got fired by the Tennessee Titans several months ago as well. And so those have already happened. Those have already been a thing. But we have had 4 new ones, and the latest has been Raheem Morris, who got fired by the Atlanta Falcons last night. He was the first domino to fall before anybody else. He was 16-18 in his tenure with the Falcons. And so you look at that and say, for head coach in year 2, it's not exactly terrible. But for the expectations of this team and for its roster and some of the guys that they still have on a rookie contract, I expected this team, especially in the NFC South, to be better than 8-9 this year, to make the playoffs, to sniff the playoffs, not be eliminated several weeks before they take place. And that was expectation for this team going into this season. I mean, a lot of people out there, a lot of experts out there, had the Atlanta Falcons winning the NFC South. I considered it at a few points. I ended up going with the Bucs. I was still wrong, but nonetheless, for the people that advocated for the Falcons winning the NFC South, I can understand the reasoning. You got Bijan Robinson. You got Drake London. Right? I mean, you've got A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates. This is a solid roster. Are there some holes? Absolutely. Is there some youth on this roster? Yes. But when you look at especially the NFC South, this is a competent roster that is capable of winning the division. And finishing in third place and missing the playoffs for the second year in a row is simply not acceptable. And you've got to dissect why it happened as well. I mean, I've been hearing it from Falcons fans for months, years at this point, with Morris being their head coach. Time management has always been an issue. All right, it's always seemed like Raheem Morris's gauge on time in these games has been a little bit off, and his play calling reflects that. I mean, his play calling, especially on offense and in crucial times, has been horrible as well. And the Falcons have had multiple blown leads in games that they should have won these past 2 years, and you're sitting there at a record like 8-9. You just missed out on winning the division. You just missed out on a playoff spot. Those are the things that you look at, right? Like, how close were you? And it sucks. It hurts for Raheem Morris because we could be having a lot different of a conversation that the Falcons could be in my NFL playoff prediction show tomorrow. But instead, It's the Panthers. And for a guy who's wired like Arthur Blank, that is simply not good enough. He has seen this team play in FC championships. He has seen this team play in Super Bowls, come very close to winning Super Bowls, by the way. Go Pats, just saying. He wants to get back there. He yearns to get back there. And damn it, he will. The Falcons also fired their general manager, Terry Fontenot. I hope I said that right. I do butcher that name sometimes, so don't come at me with your pitchforks in the comment section. If I did, I sincerely apologize. Let's just face it. Let's not reinvent the wheel here. Terry Fontenot completely butchered the Kirk Cousins situation. When the Falcons brought Kirk Cousins in, I mean, I know that he was coming off of an injury, and a knee injury, and he wasn't going to be the same. He's starting to age. I get that. I thought that the Falcons paid a little bit too much for him at first, but I was like, all right, maybe in the system he's got Bijan in the backfield. He's got Drake London. Like maybe this can work out. But he struggled with play action for a lot of his time there. He wasn't the same guy, especially early on. But that's not what was puzzling to me. It was the fact that in March, the Falcons paid, in March of 24, the Falcons gave Kirk Cousins that contract that I would say is pretty lucrative for who he was at the time. And then a month later, they follow up by drafting Michael Penix Jr. with the number 8 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the first round. That fucking blew my mind. I could not believe it when they announced that. And the draft coverage. And so that right there was something that Fontenot was going to be fighting the entire time. He completely mismanaged that quarterback situation. And when you have a window like this with guys like Drake London and Bijan Robinson on your offense, you got to capitalize on this window while those two are still on the rookie contracts. Like this is when a team like the Falcons, this is the window where you want to be competing for a Super Bowl. Not a few years from now, we have to worry about paying valuable guys. Like this is the time. And it really might not align because the quarterback market is not exactly great right now. I mean, there could be some veterans out there. There could be some diamonds in the rough in the draft this year. But there's, outside of Fernando Mendoza, I don't think there's many guys that are NFL ready that the Falcons should select to bridge that gap and help them pursue an NFC South championship and a spot in the playoffs next year. It's also a little weird that the Falcons have hired separate consulting firms for the general manager search and the head coach search. And they're bringing Matt Ryan as a consultant here as well as an advisor. So I just think that there's a lot of heads in the kitchen right now. And if you've ever been in a kitchen where there's a lot of heads, it's nuts. It's nothing you want to be in. It's very clustered. People yelling at each other, getting water splashed on your feet by the dishwasher. It sucks. I wouldn't advise it. But that's the situation the Falcons put themselves in right now. They have no business being 8-9 this year. They got to capitalize on this window, and it was the right move to get rid of Raheem Morris at this time. I know they won 4 straight. I know the players really wanted Morris to stay. But business is business, and Arthur Blank and that ownership group made a business decision here. All right, let's talk about the next domino that fell this morning. I got back from my morning run. The Cleveland Browns fired Kevin Stefanski. It's an understatement to say that I disagree with this one. And I've seen it several times in sports. And this isn't the only time in the NFL this year where the wrong guy has been fired. There's another one that I'll talk about in the show at some point. The Cleveland Browns fired the wrong guy, Kevin Stefanski. He is a 2-time NFL head coach of the year. Okay. When Kevin Stefanski inherited this team, it was a team with a lot of promise. But it was a dumpster fire. It was a tire fire in 2019. He transformed this team into an 11-5 playoff team in 2020. This Browns team goes into Heinz Field, not only beats but embarrasses the Steelers, almost hangs a 50 burger on them in Heinz Field. in the wild card round, and then proceeds to go to Arrowhead. And they came this close to beating the Chiefs in their house. And I know Mahomes got hurt. I know Chad Henne had to come in at some point. But they came that close to beating the prolific dynasty Kansas City Chiefs. And they fell just short. And then fast forward to 2023. One of the most improbable, miraculous 11-5 teams that I've ever seen. That Browns team just kept finding out ways to win games. And Joe Flacco, for a while that year, is a very defensive ground and pound team. But Kevin Stefanski, he pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And he found a way to get his team to the playoffs in 2023. When I did my research about Kevin Stefanski getting fired here, the reason that was cited for his firing, according to multiple sources, was that the Deshaun Watson situation was butchered, right? And then the Browns embarked on a quarterback situation that they had this year when they had like 5 guys on their depth chart at one point after the NFL draft. It was a clusterfuck. It was a shit show, to say the very least. But at the end of the day, it is not ultimately Kevin Stefanski's fault. Does he give his approval? Does he stand by the decisions? Absolutely. In a lot of cases, in the walls of these organizations, head coaches like Stefanski don't have a choice when it comes to what the front office, when it comes to what ownership is going to do. They're going to do what they're going to do. I mean, how many times do you see in an NFL draft where a coach wants a guy, but the general manager or the owner wants somebody else? Who do they go with? That guy. Look at the Dolphins, right? I mean, ownership wanted Tua. Brian Flores wanted Jordan Love. Who did they end up getting? That's right, Tua. Didn't matter who Brian Flores wanted. So if Browns ownership wanted Deshaun Watson, they're getting Deshaun Watson. And they did. For whatever reason. Amidst this whole masseuse scandal back in 2022, the Browns landed him. And it was an absolute disaster. It was an injury-riddled disaster. In each game that Deshaun Watson played in, he could just never get into rhythm. He had 1, maybe 2 games that were pretty good in his tenure at the Browns, and outside of that, it was a complete disaster. And then he had the thing this year with drafting both Shador and Dylan Gabriel, and having Kenny Pickett there, and having Joe Flacco there, and still having Deshaun Watson sitting there on the depth chart. I mean, it was a clusterfuck. They had to move on from Kenny Pickett at some point to make room. But I'm telling you right now, neither Dylan Gabriel nor Shador Sanders are franchise quarterbacks. Shador Sanders can give you good things. He give you those razzle-dazzle plays once in a while, but he's not consistent, and he's not going to be consistent. I think both of those guys are good, formidable backups. I don't think that they are franchise quarterbacks by any means. But I said to say it, that is the gauge by which Kevin Stefanski was evaluated, was measured. And that's wrong. That's fucked up. But the good thing for Kevin Stefanski is that there's a lot of smart organizations out there. There's a lot of organizations that are moving off of guys. There's, vacancies right now. Just saying. Maybe Kevin Stefanski ends up going to the Giants. Maybe he goes to the Titans. Who knows? I would take him. I just had my guy Nicholas Fondren in the comment section ask me about Cliff Kingsbury to Tennessee. I'm going to talk about Tennessee at some point in more depth in this podcast here, but I do want to say that I would like a guy like Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, from his track record with the Cardinals. I mean, it didn't end up going well after a while. It was up and down, but I thought the Cardinals were kind of soft at times, and so I don't want to see it happen in Tennessee, especially when they're hard-nosed and very disciplined under Mike Vrabel a couple years ago. I feel like that's the standard. Who I like for Tennessee, honestly, Nicholas, I really think about my favorite is Matt Nagy. I think that he's a guy that is deserving of another opportunity at a head coach position. I really don't think that he got the best bounce. I don't think he got the best opportunity when he had Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. He's as you can see, he's now a career backup. And so if that's how we're judging Matt Nagy, I would love to see him get a second start with the Tennessee Titans. And I want an offensive-minded head coach because, in my opinion, I think that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback. I think he's absolutely going to be a franchise quarterback. So while I love defensive head coaches for those teams that are ground and pounds and physical, for what I think that the Tennessee Titans can become, I like Matt Nagy. And I know some people may have trauma hearing Matt Nagy because of, the double bounce. I get it. I get it. There's some trauma there, especially with Bears fans. But he deserves another shot. And so my vote for the Titans right now is Matt Nagy. All right. Let's talk about the Cardinals. Talk about the Arizona Cardinals firing Jonathan Gannon. This is one that I absolutely positively agree with. This had to happen. I mean, 15 and 36 in 3 seasons. I mean, that just fucking sucks. Like there's no other way that can put that. That's fucking terrible. He was. Now remember, it was kind of sloppy how the Cardinals hired Jonathan Gannon in the first place because allegedly they tampered with the Eagles, and so they ended up making up with a draft pick exchange at some points. But Jonathan Gannon was hired from Philly. He was the Eagles' defensive coordinator in their first Super Bowl run there. Excuse me. And the Cardinals hired Jonathan Gannon with the intention of having him improve the defense. Because while Kyler Murray was giving you explosiveness on offense, the Cardinals were not nearly physical enough at all with Cliff Kingsbury at the helm. They never were. Like I just talked about, they were just not physical. They were soft. They brought Jonathan Gannon in to instill that hardcore Philly identity into the Cardinals. Well, that didn't exactly happen. As this year, the Cardinals had ranked 27th in the NFL in success rate. Bottom of the league. They had a bottom of the league defense this year. And so the purpose that they brought him in for, he didn't deliver on. He didn't fulfill on. When you bring a coach in for a purpose, he has to deliver on that. So essentially, your defense doesn't improve. In fact, I felt like it even regressed, which I never thought I would even say, but I thought that the Cardinals' defense regressed from what it was with Cliff Kingsbury, which is unreal to me. And then he paired it with a 15 and 36 record. Yeah, it's time to go. It's time to go is one way to put it. He also really mismanaged this Kyler Murray situation this year because what I think could have been a manageable situation is now complete chaos. Because when you bench a quarterback, and granted, Kyler Murray had his health issues this year. He's had a foot issue, and I'm not going to sit here and speculate on how bad the injury is. I'm not an insider. I'm not inside the walls of the organization, so my opinion, my view on that doesn't matter. But it feels to me like a Daniel Jones or a Russell Wilson situation all over again, where they're essentially forcing Kyler out. And it didn't have to get to this point. This could have been a clean break, and the Cardinals just go out and find a new guy. But now it's going to get sloppy. Now you got to find a suitor, right? I mean, this is something that whoever inherits this Cardinals job is going to have to worry about because Gannon made that decision to bench him. I thought it was emotional. I don't think it was very well thought out, and I think that it was one of the very reasons why he's been fired by Arizona. It also been talked about within the Arizona media for, I think, since around Thanksgiving that this was going to happen. So when I saw the update this morning, I was by no means surprised. Also, the issue with Imani DeMarcado back in October when Jonathan Gannon, pretty much, I mean, how do you describe it? Pushed him, slapped him on the sideline, they got into it, yelling at him, and I like a coach that gets in your grill, but when you put your hands on a player and shove them, I mean, that just That never looks good. Especially, I mean, the Cardinals got negative national media attention for that all day that Sunday and following days. So that was another one of the final straws with Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, and he ultimately gets canned. It'll be interesting to see how this Kyler Murray situation shakes out, who they bring in as a replacement, and who the Cardinals' new potential head coach could be. All right, that's the Cardinals. Let's cover what was probably the most inevitable firing of this cycle. There's no real opinion on this. It was just a fact of what was going to happen. The Raiders have fired Pete Carroll. We knew this was going to happen. This is not surprising to me at all. Pete Carroll is in his early 70s. And he inherited a job that is at least a 3-year rebuild in the Raiders. I would say 3 to 5. I mean, there's contract situations got to be figured out. There's no depth on this team whatsoever. This is one of the thinnest rosters in the NFL. They haven't had a reliable quarterback since Derek Carr. There's a lot that needs to be improved in Vegas right now. It's not easy. Okay. But any turnaround in the NFL is possible. Any team can be turned around. Yes, including the Jets, including the Dolphins, including the Giants, including the Browns. Yes, there are no exceptions. Any team can be turned around. But you got to get the right guy in there to do so. And for a turnaround like this, you need somebody with energy, with a window. Quite frankly, you need a younger guy to take this job. Somebody who's this Raiders position would be perfect for somebody looking for their first opportunity. Because, yes, is it tough? Absolutely. But you have the stamina, you have the energy to execute turnarounds, and then you've got that on your resume. You transform the Raiders. Maybe you stay there. Maybe you use that to get a different job. Maybe you transfer into the college ranks. Who knows? But you always had that on your resume of, hey, I turned this ailing team around. That is something that is for a younger head coach looking for a start. Whenever you start in a career in anything, you're going to start with shit, whatever the job is, whatever the career is. So you might as well inherit something like the Raiders and turn around, because there's nothing that you can have more pride in saying that, hey, I turned this bitch around. I was all in favor of Pete Carroll getting another head coaching job after the way that Seattle thing ended, because he kind of got ran out of town there. It was his time, but he brought Seattle their first Super Bowl. They're competitive, and most years he was there. You saw what he did with USC. That was one of the most prolific runs that we've seen in college football, right? Those Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart teams. That was incredible. As a college football fan, I'll always have respect and admiration for those USC teams. But I wish he took a different job. Right. I mean, something like the Raiders is something that's for a younger head coach. I like to compare this, and I know it's ironic when I'm talking about the Raiders, but I like to compare this to the whole Tom Brady Buck situation. As was he at the time, a 42-year-old quarterback, there was no position better for him than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a great O-line. He had a great defense. He had a great receiving core. Everything was set up perfectly for him to take the Bucs to a Super Bowl, for him to just be Tom. He doesn't have to worry about getting sacked a lot. Doesn't have to worry about trying to get guys open. Doesn't have to worry about his defense supporting him. He had all that. So if Pete Carroll was to accept an opportunity where everything was in place, the team was maybe a quarterback away, but you had a great roster, it was ready to win now. Like, maybe if you were to take the Falcons job this year, that would be one where you could be this close to being plug and chug. But no, not the Raiders. That's like if Tom Brady would have gone to the Bears in 2020 behind an awful line and a mid receiving core. That's what taking the Raiders job was comparable to. It was not the right job for Pete Carroll's time in his career. This is a long rebuild, and I hope that's the Raiders with Tom Brady in the building do their due diligence and do sufficient research to bring the right guy in. All right, gonna do a little rapid fire here before transferring into, I mean, no pun intended, before transferring into the college part of the show. The Titans, like I explained a few minutes ago, the Titans have requested several interviews this morning. They requested to interview Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, and Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. Now, like I said, I think that it is in the Titans' best interest to bring in an offensive-minded head coach for Cam Ward. And I stand on that. I'd love to see Spags get a second chance. I think he's a great coordinator, but I'd love to see him get a second chance because that Rams thing was just a shit show, we all know. And I'd love to see Vance Joseph get a second chance as well. And I think there's a good chance both these guys could get hired in this cycle. Vance Joseph, like Matt Nagy, is another guy who never had a franchise quarterback. And while you can assist in the search and you can insert your say in there as a head coach as the guy you want, ultimately it's upstairs making the decision. Okay, so Vance Joseph never had that opportunity with the Broncos. Matt Nagy never had it with the Bears. And for that reason, they never really had a fair shot. And I thought it was crazy that Matt Nagy brought the Bears to a 12-4 record in 2018. Just saying. For the Titans, my favorite for this position is Matt Nagy, but I'd love to see the other two good jobs as well. Because I think at this point, what they've done, I mean, that Chiefs defense, with the exception of this year, it's been nasty for years. And even had bright spots this year as well. But as we know, that Broncos defense has been prolific this year. I can't wait to see what they do in this playoffs rounds. And Vance Joseph has been the architect of that. All right, the Giants, New York Giants, are holding on to Joe Schoen. I can't believe I'm even saying those words after the Daniel Jones situation, after the Saquon Barkley situation. They are still holding on to Joe Schoen. I mean, his hit rate has not been great, to say the very least. A lot of Giants fans, a lot of New York media were calling for him to be fired this year. I was saying that he'd be fired before Brian Daboll, and this is what I was foreshadowing here. The Giants fired the wrong guy. I think they should have fired Schoen and not Brian Daboll. I thought Brian Daboll did a great job coaching this team. I thought he was a great fit with the Giants organization. Does he have some responsibility for the way things have gone the past couple of years? Absolutely. But year in, year out, Joe Schoen had not constructed a formidable team. A team capable of competing with your Eagles, with your Commanders, with your Cowboys, with your other NFC juggernauts. He just hasn't done it. And for that reason, I thought they should move off of him. But nonetheless, they keep him. I think there's some pissed off Bengals fans, Dolphins fans, and Ravens fans today. Because there has been no indication that Mike McDaniel is going to get fired. A lot of Dolphins fans really pulling for that. I thought that it was time for a change. I thought that they haven't looked physical at all. I thought they haven't looked tough at all. I thought that a lot of Dolphins collapses, especially in cold weather physical games, have been predictable. Mike McDaniel just didn't have them ready for that. And I think offensively, the Dolphins became predictable after a while. And so, and again, it was kind of like a Cliff Kingsbury thing where they didn't seem tough to me. They didn't seem physical to me. And that's what you need to be in the AFC if you want to go up north and win playoff games. Instead, they're moving on with Tua. Do I understand why they're doing that? Absolutely. But I was thinking that they had to clean house. Tua, Mike McDaniel, and Chris Greer, who absolutely had to go because of just the way the Dolphins' offensive line looks. Linebacker core, luckily, has improved a little bit this year, but secondary hasn't been great at all. Yeah, I think it's time for a whole regime change for the Dolphins down South Beach and the Ravens. I mean, how many collapses can you have? I just think that the John Harbaugh thing is kind of stale there. This is a Super Bowl winning head coach. He's brought the Ravens to multiple AFC championships. Very decorated head coach. And I think a guy who should absolutely get another gig in this cycle. I think the Giants should look into him. I think that the Cardinals should look into him. Anybody who's a vacancy If you're looking at John Harbaugh, I think he could even be the guy for the Raiders job. I think that he's still of age for that. But it's his time in Baltimore, I just feel like, is over. And the Bengals are holding on to Zach Taylor. And I know exactly how Bengals fans feel about that. Not great. But I digress. All right. We are going to make a shift here in the show now. We are going to transition into talking about some transfer portal news in college football. So, excuse me, we've had several major dominoes fall in this past day, and we're still waiting on DJ Lagway. He's visiting Florida State, which is crazy. He's visiting Virginia, among other visits that he's still planning out as well. But some guys have decided. One of those guys is Brennan Sorsby. He is going up to Lubbock to play for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and for teams like Texas Tech, for teams like Indiana, who know that their guy is not staying. It's important to fill that hole, to keep momentum going. Well, both teams have done that. Baron Morton is gone, and after what I saw in the Orange Bowl, I think it might be time for an upgrade. And maybe that guy is Brennan Sorsby. He's a Denton native. I believe he played for Lake Dallas High School, which is right in this general area where this show is coming from, Fort Worth. So he's a DFW guy. I'm fully behind him. 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions for the Cincinnati Bearcats this year. The Bearcats kind of collapsed towards the end of the season, and a lot of November losses, but that's something that's not all on him. Texas Tech, Cody Campbell, that collective, they outbid LSU. Lane Kiffin and his crew made a push for Brennan Sorsby. But Cody Campbell and the Matador Club, Joey McGuire, said, hell no, Lane Kiffin. He's ours. He's coming back to Texas. And that's what he did. And he's a good mobile pocket passer. He's got a good arm. I think that he's going to fit well with this Texas Tech team. So I love the Red Raiders bringing Brennan Sorsby. Louisville. Jeff Brom does it again. Whether it's Jack Plummer, whether it's Miller Moss, whether it's Tyler Shuck, he's hit on the quarterback position every single year, and he's kind of a quarterback whisperer as well. Well, Louisville has their new transfer quarterback for 2026, and it is Ohio State transfer Lincoln Kienholz, the guy who just barely lost the starting job to Julian Sayin in fall camp. He battled him. He battled him closer than a lot of Ohio State insiders expected him to. And I think that he's just one of the, with these elite programs like your Ohio States out there. I mean, we saw it with Joe Burrow a couple years ago. Sometimes guys just get buried. He got buried behind J.T. Barrett. And I'm by no means saying that Lincoln Kienholz is Joe Burrow. But sometimes gems get buried. And I think that Lincoln Kienholz could be that gem. He's a dual threat quarterback. For his age, he's got really good IQ. And like I said, Jeff Brom is a quarterback whisperer. So I think that Lincoln Kienholz to Louisville is a slam dunk. I think the ACC race is going to be fascinating next year. You've got Louisville, you got James Franklin and Virginia Tech, you've got Mario Cristobal building a machine down in Miami. Who knows? Is this Dabo's last year in Clemson? The ACC storylines are going to be interesting next year. Does SMU make a climb back? We're going to find out, but I think Louisville is absolutely going to be a player next year. Penn State, under the Matt Campbell regime, he's brought dozens of Iowa State players in at this point. This Iowa State team is completely depleted right now. I think there's like 15 guys in that roster. It's like another Auburn. I feel bad for the Cyclones right now because they had a good thing cooking, and now it's just been ripped to the studs. But Matt Campbell has brought in Rocco Beck, his quarterback, from Ames to State College. And this is one of my favorite moves made in this cycle so far, because when you have a new head coach regime, it's important to bring some familiarity in. Beck and Matt Campbell have worked together for years. He has multiple of his tight ends coming back, multiple of his receivers coming back. It's linemen coming back. I mean, this is essentially going to be Iowa State in State College. I know you're in the Big Ten. I know it's an upgrade in competition here. But it's good to just have that familiarity, to have a veteran quarterback like Rocco Beck. and the IQ, the experience that he has. This is what you need for a team that's having a fresh start, making the transition from James Franklin to Matt Campbell. So, love Matt Campbell bringing a familiar face in the State College. I think he'll succeed here. I'm interested to see what Penn State does this year. And then, of course, I made a little short of this one yesterday. Kurt Signetti does it again. First Curtis Rourke, then Fernando Mendoza, and now Josh Hoover. And being here in Fort Worth, I mean, we know how valuable Josh Hoover is. And does he have a turnover issue sometimes? Yes. But I think a lot of that had to do with him feeling the need to force the ball on a team that struggles defensively, on a team that struggles with special teams, on a team that struggles to run the ball. Everything was on Josh Hoover to make things happen passing the ball this year. And now he's going to a program and a system and a team like Indiana where the resources are there. He's going to have a good line. He's going to have a good defense. He's going to have a good running game. It's going to work out. He's just going to have more support around him. He has one of the best coaches, one of the best head coaches in the game right now, and Kurt Signetti. And so this opportunity was a no-brainer for Josh Hoover. And I think I know his nickname, Josh Hoosier. I mean, that too is a no-brainer. But Josh Hoover has a great deep ball. He can fit that ball in places where very few other quarterbacks in college football can. I think Josh Hoover could be a breakout star next year. I think that Indiana could possibly compete for another Heisman. I think he's exactly the guy that the Hoosiers needed to continue maybe building a dynasty here, depending on how this year shakes out for the Hoosiers. But this was absolutely a step in the right direction for Kurt Signetti and his staff. They nailed it bringing in Josh Hoover. And I'll be making a video at some point here just about Indiana's attack in the transfer portal so far because they have been killing it. They also brought in Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh. I almost said Nick Nash, San Jose State. I meant Nick Marsh. I think that him and Josh Hoover will have phenomenal chemistry as well. All right. That's all I have for y'all today. 37 minutes in. Tomorrow, tune in. I'll post updates. I believe it'll be around noon, where I will be doing my official NFL bracket and making all my picks for Wild Card Weekend. So be sure to tune in for that. Hit that subscribe button and let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.